talk a lot about this map choice after the intros. In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg for Team Go, he is Elazer.
And up at the top left-hand side of the map, we have the red Protoss player representing Team Arma. It is ShoWTimE.
Yeah. So Lightshade, actually, kind of small map, rush distance-wise, and
oh my god, sorry. Really quickly, I just realized I made a huge boo-boo. It's actually not Team Arma. That's like a super old team for him. It's actually Team Big. I'm so sorry, guys.
I was like, well, there seems to be an icon right there, but you know what, Fear Dragon?
You know, I sometimes my brain just reverts back. We were talking about the old school days of StarCraft and everything. I was like, yeah, old school days. And then I thought, like, you know, back to a year and a half ago. Oh my God, so old.
You know what? It's like I saw you and it looked kind of like you were sinking. It looked kind of like you were drowning, but like I wasn't sure. So I just like kept the life preserver to myself.
that's like a doggy paddle, right? Yeah. He's staying up there. He's Okay, never mind. He's face down.
Yeah, exactly. I whoops a daisy. Anyway, so I was gonna talk about the map. So gosh, yeah, ShoWTimE with the lock does force the Elazer to go elsewhere with this hatchery, but. One of the shorter maps, and also, like, it's not even just that, like, usually when we talk about map distance, it's kind of like there's two sides here, right? On one hand, you don't want to be a super large map because that's when Zerg starts to just, like, overwhelm and get really scary. But, you know, on the other, you don't want to be, like, rushed. And when it's a Elazer that you're facing, would you not think that ShoWTimE would be more concerned about letting a short rush distance map through? But not only that, but there's also a lot more open space. I mean, not like the most open space ever, but like a decent amount of open space in this map. So I'm very curious. I guess maybe ShoWTimE just does like it, maybe like personal preference wise, right? Or that maybe he even was going to do something a little more aggressive. As soon as I say that, he adds on a Twilight Council.
I was actually going to say, you know, one thing that we've definitely noticed with ShoWTimE, especially this season of the DreamHack SC2 Masters, is that he has been a bit more aggressive than he used to be. And I don't mean that in the, oh, you know, it's a Protoss player that puts on light pressure with these early Protoss openings while expanding and stuff. He's actually thrown out more like, this is kind of a two-base all-in kind of plays. A lot of adept plays as well, I feel like. So I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing like a War Prism and Resonant Glaives or something starting up.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone's kind of anticipating just with the meta as it is. We do have probes out of gas as well in the main, which is a very good indicator that it is the Resonating Glaives. If they're still in there, then it could just be Resonating Glaives with like a fast Dark Shrine follow-up, something like that. But yeah, if they're out, it's almost always Resonating Glaives. So there you go. We can see that, we can know that, but for Elazer, he's kind of got to be piecing together things. And certainly, just by letting this map through and ShoWTimE's history, he's probably thinking, oh, adepts. But as far as actually scouting very much, he might have scouted a faster warp gate. But even then, like, you can no longer really trust that as far as what it means Stargate or Twilight Council. And soon, of course, he'll be like, oh, there's no Oracle. But I think he's already figured it out, honestly. I think he already knows. He's already predicting it.
Yeah, and I love the usual spread that so many Zerg players have gotten very, very good at. I don't know if it's started by Cyril, but it's certainly one of the first players I've seen really utilizing the spread of those links to just anticipate and find where the War Prism's coming in from, identify the angle it's going to be attacking in from, so you can get your queens and your lings and everything into position to just maximize the defensive capabilities for the Zerg player. 39 workers is all that Elazer feels like he needs right now because he's adding on just pure lings, adding on the Roach Warren, adding on queens, and just getting up raw defenses. But that also means he has to have a solid defense here. He cannot afford to lose too many workers because realistically, he's only up one worker right now.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of the awkwardness about the adept attack. And this is even more dedicated than usual. This is 6 gateways, all right? It's not 4, it's not 5, it is 6. It is going to be a lot of adepts. And that can be really tricky for the Zerg player who's trying to actually toe that line, right? They're trying not to take any damage, but then also they want to get back into droning, you know, when they can, or if they can, which I think in this case you're not going to at all. Elazer is producing a lot of units. He's got 4 queens in the front lines, looking for that Warp Prism that's going to go ahead and circumvent them, go right into the main. That is the benefit of the Shade of the Adepts. Now that is a pretty good links around. The Roach is already there as well. Was that really worth it for ShoWTimE?
Yeah, a very awkward position to kind of shade into over there. He has some reinforcing adepts now being warped in, but remember, ShoWTimE has not gotten into the position that a lot of pro players want to get into with these adepts just yet. He hasn't gotten to a single mineral line. No drone has been so much as lightly scathed by any of these adepts, good old Resonating Glaives. So far, I would say Elazer's done a good job considering the fact that he made so many units. He had to have this kind of defense so far, but it's not over just yet. ShoWTimE still got plenty of adepts left over, and he's actually spreading them out now between both the main and the third base. All of the units for Elazer heading over to the third base, just the queens being left into the main.
You know, Elazer's making so many units. It does seem like he's going to be able to spread them around well enough. And with so many links available, too, like they'll at least buy that time, even if they don't usually want to take on the Adepts directly. They are going to do so here, but I think it's supposed to be because he has to. The Roaches are dealing with the other Adepts on that third base or into the natural even. The drones are being pulled, and so far still getting good on the drone count at 38, although the mining time might be a little bit questionable. But don't forget that even if ShoWTimE eventually finds damage in the economy, what would he do about Elazer's army supply after that? That is always the tricky thing about Adepts. So not only does he have to find some economic damage, you know, at least 5, 6 drones here, he also has to prepare for potentially deadly counterattack.
I'm actually dumbfounded. You know, I was talking about, oh, the unbreakable shield over here of ShoWTimE. Elazer, he finally loses some drones. He's lost now 4 drones to these Adepts, 5 drones it looks like at the end of the day. Elazer just did such an astounding job for such a long time, not losing any workers that entire time. Like you said, he's also just been building up that army supply. It's 10 army supply to 66. I'm actually, even though, yes, Elazer put himself in a position he had to have that one of those kind of defenses come out in the end, I'm just amazed how well he pulled that off. It is so easy to just gradually start losing your grip on like the Adept shaded over or just 2 Adepts shaded over to a base, and you lose a couple of drones here and there, it starts adding up. Elazer actually didn't lose any drones until that last second there, where he lost 5.
Exactly. That was a really good defense, and he didn't underestimate the power, which is really what you're scared of doing. What the Protoss wants you to do is kind of like cut it at the drone count you usually would, 39, 40, and then make, I don't even know actually, like 30, maybe 40 lings and a handful of roaches. But then if you can, deal with it then and there. Right, but it also has to do with positioning, because even if you are making those units and preparing for an attack, if you're out of position once, that's when you suddenly get slaughtered. And not just with drones, but lings can take really inefficient trades. But that started off really well for Elazer, and that good start really did spiral into just like a better game for him. Now, Elazer, despite at one point being 8 times the supply of ShoWTimE, I think made a really smart decision here. ShoWTimE also made a smart decision. He added on a Dark Shrine, which would have saved him from any counterattack, and I think Elazer probably has had that happen to him before.
So
he was like, I'm not even going to use it. Now, he has a lair, and he is going to build an Overseer now, but even though he didn't risk the counterattack and the potential DT defense, he's not prepared for the DTs, actually. He's going to take damage.
Oh, he's taking a lot of damage. 1 DT in each one of these bases. Already 13 workers. They've, at this point, tripled the number of workers killed that the Adepts did. All of those Adepts together, how much damage can they do versus 3 Cloaky boys? My God. Oh, God. Oh, my. That was the move that just pulled ShoWTimE back in this game, right?
Yes, absolutely. That was... Well, that was what I was expecting. I thought Elazer was actually kind of even, you know, a little scared of DTs, and that's why he didn't just run across the map. But maybe he was, and then figured he would be able to defend against it no problem, and then, you know, just one of those things that got out of control. Maybe he wasn't thinking about them at all, but hell, even just one single Overseer, you know, a precautionary Overseer would have really saved him a lot of headache. But this game is just, it's kind of getting a little bit wild, honestly. Elazer also kind of forced in this position where he's had to redrone a couple of times. Any, I guess, maybe like really strong push he was thinking of always has to be kind of pushed back, right? So again, having to redrone, actually getting up to a decent economy. He's got to play more into that mid game where, I mean, he's not weak. You know, Elazer's not going to be weak at any point, but we do start kind of considering ShoWTimE the stronger player the later the game gets.
Yeah, especially with the robotics bay being added on, a second robo being put down now. So ShoWTimE is really gearing up for that later stage of PvZ, where he absolutely is known to have a lot of strengths in as we go into that later stage, like you were saying. Elazer is going to be adding on the infestation pit right now. Of course, so far it's just been lings and roaches and everything. Do you have a sense of like if that's going to be an infestation pit because he's thinking about getting up a really quick hive, or is that going to be an infestation pit for a little bit of earlier tech?
You know, I'm actually not certain yet. I'm going to wait and see because while usually at this type of game I would have said a hive, the fact that it's this meta and this map, I would be like, oh, it actually probably Swarm Host. Because we've seen Elazer and a couple other Zergs do the just kind of almost like face check Swarm Host. Like you get Swarm Host and you move them right across the map, you know, no sneaky Nidus Swarms or anything like that. So it looks kind of weird to do it kind of late. It'd only be 20 supply with the Swarm Host as well, which is like not a lot. That's one Swarm Host weaknesses, but I could see it happening. I could also see this as now being just into a hive, preparing when he feels comfortable to actually start that hive. As so far it's not being used, so all this hypothetical stuff doesn't matter. Spire is actually being added, which also feels kind of late and kind of like a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, it almost makes me wonder if he's going to start up the hive in like a little bit and then time it out so he can start up a greater spire right after that finishes, something like that, like the old school style of ZVP. We don't see as much of these days. Nice catch over here from Elazer. Finds both of the adepts. Is going to be able to kill off one of them. Not quite the second one, I don't think in time. Oh my god, yep, barely gets her out. Gets surrounded very quickly thereafter. I think that Elazer's finally thinking about pushing forward though. He's got a big army on the north side. Has a decent-sized army on the south side. Is he going to try and hit two different bases at once?
Seems like it. Some excellent force fields. Those were really clutch. Plus, Stalker's going to soak up a lot of banelings, even if they were going to be sacrificed. But the left side, yeah, that fourth base, a little bit more under-defended. ShoWTimE, he was getting to a point where he would feel comfortable mixing up or splitting up his army, rather, but he was under 150 supply. He still doesn't have that +1 done. His Disruptor's actually getting pounced upon. He was close to having a defense, but Elazer hit at that right time and is going to grab a Nexus for it.
Yeah, ShoWTimE also had he used a recall over there. Either that was a bait recall where he was like, I'm recalling, you should back up now. Oh. Or he misclicked because he basically recalled two Stalkers to that bottom left-hand base, and it did absolutely nothing. Either way, though, ShoWTimE losing that base is definitely going to hurt. He's got to make something happen, and he does, again, like you said, have those Disruptors available to him. He's got to get some good shots off. He's going to get an okay shot, kills off a couple of the Rabbits. He's going to be able to start pushing this back. Attack on the bottom left. He's going to find that there's no base over here, though.
Bruh. Disruptors don't shoot up. There are going to be 24 mutas.
That's going to be a problem.
Yes, it's a huge
there are more
problem.
mutas than Stalkers, actually.
Yes, that might just be the GG trigger, you know? Like, either he pushes and then GGs, or he just GGs. All right, he's good. Okay, there you go.
All right.
Oh, man. Brutal. Absolutely brutal play from Elazer. If he had played more a little bit later and more on just Roach Baneling, right? Like, then ShoWTimE has a lot of chances to bring it back. But he hit when he did, and his transition afterwards was just the cruelest thing I think you can do to Protoss, honestly. Hiding 2000, 2000, and Aspire. Ouch.
Yeah, that's a feels bad moment for every Protoss player where you're like, wow, because I didn't know about this, there's literally nothing I can do now at this point. I needed to know about this earlier. So really, really well played there. Good reaction from Elazer. And again, like, even though I won't compliment him on the DT defense, I will happily compliment him on that Adept defense. It was seriously, until he lost, I was so sad that he ended up losing even 5 workers there, because I was like, is he about to have held off a 6-gate Adept all-in without losing a single drone? Even if he did cut workers a lot earlier to get up that army units, like, that would have been astounding. I think that would have been maybe one of the first times I've seen that. But yeah, still really, really solid defense there that didn't quite win him the game, but put him in a very good position to set himself up for it eventually.
Yeah, I think as far as, you know, looking back on that entire game, it's clear that the lack of Adept pressure, they didn't do very much, was worse than the DTs getting the 21 or whatever drone kills. Like, that wasn't great, but the Adepts not doing anything or barely anything was still worse. And if maybe the DTs had continued doing damage, you know, if they had gotten the 4th hatch canceled and then, you know, dropped into the main base, it would have been a different game. But it wasn't. Elazer still he did redrone, and he redroned without fear of having, you know, his head chopped off, which I think is one of the biggest things, is that Elazer never had to worry about dying, really. He was checking on ShoWTimE, seeing like, oh, you don't have an army to kill me, I'm fine, let's go. And that made it so that his economy was still booming, and he could still make a maxed out Ravager Baneling army, as well as transition into 24 meters. So that's a scary Zerg indeed. We're on Romanticide now for game 2. In the top left, as the blue Zerg, he is Elazer.
And down on the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have the red Protoss player from Team Big. He is ShoWTimE.
Gotta imagine on a Romanticide, and after that last game, you don't up and up with the Twilight Council. If you do, I figure you gotta do something kind of weird afterwards, right? Like maybe much faster Dark Shrine or the Robotic Spade Disruptor push. I think there's another reason you don't open up the depth though on this map, and that's that Elazer has now done, I think, twice in this tournament, a Nidus Worm all in against someone doing a depths. It was like kind of similar builds. Oh, it was I think it was Hearthstone, and then it was Gung Fu. That's how it happened to him. So yeah, I don't think ShoWTimE does it here. It's gonna pull back to the wall.
Yeah, how do you feel about like the Stargate openings and stuff that a lot of the time back in the day you used to consider like this is the standard safe opening, and especially with the Void Ray now becoming more common, which actually it can act as like an even safer prop for the defense. Like, how do you feel about the Stargate opening against Elazer's style of aggression?
I mean, I think it's better than having a Twilight Council, and then Robo openers can be a little weird. You know, I guess maybe someone will argue that you could still do like an Archon drop opener, which is really fallen out of the meta. Like, it's actually kind of surprising how much it fell out. But yeah, then Robo openers are too weird, usually an all-in. I don't think you do that against Elazer. Yeah, I think Stargate's honestly the only option. It's the best option. And then as far as getting a Void Ray or not, like that absolutely will stop any early pressure. But no, I don't think Elazer's not gonna be shooting for that. Elazer, he can definitely be cheesy. And if we were kind of thinking about cheesy as something that's early as well as likely to succeed when not scouted, he can be that. I always think of Elazer as the mid-game all-in. So that's the difference usually for me, you know, between cheese and not cheese, is mid-game or early game. So the Stargate opener is just the beginning. It gets you the scouting. It can give you tools to defend, but if Elazer's gonna be bringing in queens over his Nidus Worm anyways, then who cares what pops out of the Void Ray or not?
That is true. The queens often do not care if you have an air unit there, and they'll tank the damage for pretty much all of those early game air units pretty easily in the early stages. Regardless, though, we are going to see that first Stargate popping on out here for ShoWTimE. Finishes the wall, and we'll see if it is going to be the typical, you know, Oracle opening, and it looks like it is, and if he's going to actually follow it up into the now current meta Void Ray follow-up, or if he's going to go into like the old school Phoenix or something.
Or yeah, just a second Oracle. I mean, ShoWTimE had experimented with Void Rays like everyone else was doing when they were first buffed, right? But now it's as far as like stylistic, personal preference, whatever, like ShoWTimE's like lesser on the list of people who would do it, but we'll see. Yeah, it is still something you can roam around with and scout with, even though it's like a more dangerous tool to do so, a more expensive tool to do so. But it is a second Oracle, and I actually prefer this. I actually want to see ShoWTimE's regular defense and good scouting against Elazer's aggression. That's the classic matchup between the two.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we were expecting we were going to be seeing outside of, you know, the Adept all-in that, of course, ShoWTimE went for in that last game. But Roach Warren's being added on over here for Elazer. He's just playing it safe, not too sure exactly what he's going to be facing off against just yet. So covering his bases, getting ready for any kind of potential attacks. It's actually making even more lings right now, going up to 16. So really preparing for the potential that these Adepts decide to dive in or something. But still adding on more lings. Zombie Grub, he's cut off with 40 workers. I feel like this is getting to be a little bit on the higher side of lings being made. He's still making more.
Yeah, it's a little bit concerning. You know, he's making a lot of overlords, making sure he has supply. Kind of feels like he's gonna be adding on roaches, but these oracles would be able to scout roaches popping. They could even scout the amount of Lings, though I don't think that they did, you know, seeing as the Adepts were taken care of pretty quickly. The Lings now move across the map. They can't help with the Oracles. Anyways, one of them falls. Actually a pretty big deal because both of them, I think, have to come back and help out against the third base. There's 4 Adepts there trying to guard it, right? They didn't actually go across the map, but, oh, they're going to be surrounded as well. Close to it.
Oh. Yeah, those Adepts are very, very dead. Another Adept does get warped in, is going to buy a bit of time. The Oracle helping out quite a bit with actually picking up quite a few of these Zerglings, and the third base will survive. Even a couple of the Lings getting body blocked by that Adept, now finding their way back around the other way. And, well, those are, all in all, a pretty good defense there from ShoWTimE.
It was pretty clutch that he got a third Oracle. I didn't see it because I think it had popped on the production tab, but it was very nice that he got a third Oracle. So he's back down to 2, but that third one popped defensively, which is exactly what he needed. And 2 is still a very good count for killing, well, anything creep tumors, even a queen that's on her own, drones, and of course, most importantly, the Revelation. So ShoWTimE deals with that, and I would say that's a pretty successful defense. It was a trade of Lings versus Adepts, but no, an Oracle. No, not like this.
Oh, Stretch Armstrong, Spore Crawler, able to actually get that last Oracle with a shot from, you know, down under. But it's actually kind of funny to note. It's not going to play a huge impact right now, but it just kind of goes to show the investment that Elazer had into that earlier flood of Lings and everything. Doesn't even have the creep spread between the natural and the third base connected just yet. Like, it's actually set him back in a lot of other ways, and you can kind of see he's finally going to get that there. So it's, again, not going to play a huge impact just yet, but Spire being started up, and Elazer still just trying to drone back up after all of the early drones he cut.
Well, the big emphasis from Elazer and what he seems to really be pushing alongside some other Zergs, but him especially, is that creep spread to the front. Like, he is going to be close to ShoWTimE's 4th base, no matter where ShoWTimE takes his 4th base. Like, that creep spread is really scary. But it can be kind of hit or miss when it comes to ZVP. We'll see if it's a hit. If or ShoWTimE can start cleaning it up with something. His hallucinations, do they actually scout the Spire? They go back into the main. I think they just confirmed that it wasn't canceled. And he is going to push out what looks to be just a 4th base. His charge +1 are a little ways off, but he has a Warp Prism. He could try pushing just to kind of like say, hey, don't make mutas immediately, but it would be a bit dangerous, especially because there's so much creep spread.
Yeah, well, he is going to start poking out far. You know, even if there is a lot of creep spread, I actually don't hate the idea of just being ready to warp in some stuff defensively or using the Oracle to help deal with like a Ling run by, but just at least poking forward. And oh my god, actually finds a great angle over here on this base and says, well, you actually don't have any creep spread over here. Spire just finished up, but all of the units on the ground for Elazer are out of position for this moment. There's that Ling run by we were talking about, but Shield Battery and a couple of Zelts are going to be able to deal with that. ShoWTimE force shields away the army, snipes off the hatchery, and backs the heck out of there. Has the Warp Prism over here for some extra micro if he needs it, and he's probably just going to be able to fall back to his other base pretty safely.
Yeah, it was a good decision. I think if he did try and engage that, even with the, cut off the Roach army from each other, it still would have been a little bit dicey just because he didn't really have that many Immortals. Now he's up to 2. He's trying to chrono out a 3rd one. He's trying to get to maybe a couple more Archons as well, and now he's going to defend. But it looks like a good defense. He's down by 20, which is actually pretty okay for a Protoss player. Elazer's Centrifugal Hooks only just started, so this is just a pure Roach Ravager attack. And yeah, I think even Elazer's like, that's maybe not going to work. He still has the option of that Spire, though, so we'll have to keep eyes on that. But he knows it wasn't a surprise. He knows he's going to have a huge bank into it. It might be coming a lot later or not at all if he's just going to all in here. He brings forward the Queens. He's going to produce Banelings. It might be slow, but they're still going to be scary, and he's going to go for it.
Yeah, ShoWTimE's been building up some energy on those sentries that he already used a lot of force shields with. He's definitely going to need a couple of them to try and lock out some of his army. He actually tries to cut off a few of these units. Ravagers do manage to knock those force shields down on the south side. The Shield Battery's keeping those Immortals alive for a very, very long time. Slow Banelings waddling on forward, going after the Shield Battery. Don't quite manage to get it. The Shield Battery overstrikes something on left. Look at all the Zells coming in from the right-hand side. ShoWTimE was banking them up until all of the Banelings were gone, and he gets a massive, massive surrounded connection on all these Ravagers. ShoWTimE is going to lock that defense down.
What a beautiful defense that was in so many different ways, from ShoWTimE's execution of it to the actual just the fact that we had to zoom out and watch every single fight matter. That was absolutely sick. And then like it seems like a movie setup, right? Where the Zealots come into the last second for the charge. That was excellent. But we got to go to a break, guys. And when we come back, we'll see who wins the series with game number 3.
After an exciting defense there from ShoWTimE in game number 2, we get amped up for game number 3 to decide who's going to be able to carry out this series forward when that $125 on the line and go into the playoffs with a little bit more confidence as we are here in Group B. I'm joined by Zombie Grub. Zombie Grub, how are you enjoying this series so far?
It's kind of living up to expectations. You know, that first game was a little more one-sided when it came down to, you know, everything actually moving in, suddenly 24 mutas in your base. But the second game was more what I was anticipating, I guess, which is that ShoWTimE played just a defensive setup on a map that I think was good for it. And then Elazer thought he could pull the trigger and kill his opponent, even if it wasn't necessarily the best timing. And ShoWTimE just showed how to defend a push like that. That was the perfect example. You study that when you want to defend against a Roach baneling attack.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're going to be starting up here in the top right-hand side of the map, top of the red Protoss player from Team Big. He is ShoWTimE.
In the bottom left, as the blue Zerg, he is Elazer.
Okay, well, yeah, good old Pillars of Gold, nice easy map to take those naturals. You got that high ground area and everything. I feel like it doesn't usually come hugely into play with like super early aggression or anything that often in this matchup, because I think not as many Zergs want to go for like a Baneling Bust or Roach Rapid Draw in these days, especially at like the top level of Europe specifically. But I feel like this map always feels like it gets a little bit complicated when you start getting to like the third bases in terms of defense.
Yeah, a little bit. You don't want to take, for instance, ShoWTimE's horizontal base is one to the left, because that's a big old open space, lots of concave for a laser. Yeah, exactly. And then his, the other third, that does have more chokes, but then once they break down the rocks, it still means that they come in from multiple different angles, which, I mean, I'm actually thinking back to ShoWTimE, I think it was last season, if I recall correctly. He kind of got boxed in, he was well set up. He had scouted the all-in. It was Ling Baneling Ravager, and he was like, I got this, and then he just missed one little pixel of a force field and got completely surrounded on this map. So, I mean, I feel like Protoss players around the world, from Bronze to ShoWTimE, know that feeling.
Yeah.
But it's extra frustrating when you actually can predict these things and still fail.
Well, if there's one thing that we can oftentimes count on ShoWTimE for, it's that he has pretty solid execution. I love that this drone and this probe are like perfectly matched pixel for a bit as they're traveling through a bit. Yeah, it's going to be a fun little thing to see exactly how ShoWTimE decides to maybe play out a bit of this map. Because again, in game number 1, he decided to get more aggressive. We actually see another Twilight Council opening over here. But is he going to try and get as aggressive as he did in game number 1 and really try and pile on that pressure? Just because this map can get a little bit dicey sometimes with third bases? Or is he going to feel comfortable enough and say, look, that second game really got my momentum swinging. I feel like I can make the defense happen. Let's put on a little bit of light pressure.
Well, I'm hoping that it is something different from 6 gateways, right?
Yeah.
And it is going to be Adepts again. He has taken the probes out of gas, but I'm going to say that it's going to be 4 gateways in total, and then very light committal on it. And then what happens afterwards is far more interesting. Fast third, robotics bay, what's going to happen. But I would prefer not to see 6 gateways again. Not that it doesn't work ever. It does. Just that it doesn't seem like it's going to work against Elazer.
Yeah, Elazer's, like, I think you even said it in the first game. Elazer just identified it incredibly early on and was like, I know exactly what to do against this, and did such a sick job on the defense. So I'm definitely a fan of what you were saying, like go for a 4-gate adept pressure and take a 3rd and stuff behind it. But well, for now it's just the 4 gateways. So I got my fingers crossed, Zombie God, that we're not going to go up to 6.
I think we're only going to 3. You know, counting.
Oh, actually, yeah, you're right.
Gateway production sometimes can be a real, make you look really,
I'm a
really
Protoss
silly.
player, so you know, adding single-digit numbers sometimes a little too big for my brain. But you know.
I mean, I was being legitimate though, because it's like producing and then it's structures. There's 2 different structures though. There's gateway and warp gate. You guys have it tough.
Can I make a caster complaint? This is like the stupidest caster complaint ever. But I hate the feeling of like you're trying to count between production or producing things or like gateways and the number that are already there. And in the time that you swap over from the structures tab to the production tab, one of them finishes and then you get a miscount. You're like, oh.
Yes, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about, but it is going to be 3. They're all finished. It's 3.
Yes.
So that's actually like usually even when you're not really going to commit a whole lot, you would still go up to 4. So this is definitely a bit of a difference, and I like it. You know, even trying to hope that Elazer really does overreact, but it's actually going into a robotics bay. So I think the Overlord. Oh, actually, it's Stalkers once again. I have to deal with this by itself and force a recall.
Oh. Yeah, full recall over here, and it's gonna also reveal the Resonant Engraved, you know, research finishing, which I'm pretty sure Elazer already knew about. But you actually look at Elazer's setup. Zombie Graph is very, very similar to game number 1 with earlier Spore Crawlers, mind you. But it's a very similar setup in how early he cut workers.
Well, you know, it does seem to be one of those things that Zerg players have figured out, all right? They all got together in the Zerg equivalent of the Twilight Council and were like, this is what we do. But the difference is, of course, the positioning, and occasionally like who puts a spine crawler, who doesn't. And then, yeah, what am I thinking they're going to do? So in this case, Elazer, it seems like he's thinking, oh, he's going to do a faster Dark Shrine, or at least I have to be, that would be the worst case scenario, is probably more what he's thinking, right? The worst case scenario is I do not have detection and I die, because he noticed I didn't have Spore Crawlers in that first game. And I understand it, but it does mean that he has 3 drones less, 225 minerals put into the Spore Crawlers. And ShoWTimE actually kind of just goes like, nah. I don't even really commit to Adepts, much less an actual Dark Shrine. I'm going to 3rd Nexus. I got Disruptors that are either going to be used defensively if I have to, and Observer kind of saw, I guess, that it didn't have to, or I'm going to use it offensively, which he's been pretty good with before. Last time he did this build, he did very well in killing drones, queens, lings, roach, very active with it.
Yeah, I actually want to note also, it's a small thing, but seeing Warp Prism speed actually does really, really sort out a lot of the time, I think, for Zerg players, like what it probably is. Because, you know, you see the Warp Prism moving out, and if it's a normal speed Warp Prism, it could be a lot of things, right? But as soon as you see a speed Prism, you're like, okay, you got a robotics bay, clearly. So there's a good chance that this isn't just, maybe it is just some Adepts, but oftentimes it's actually going to be like a Disruptor drop or something along those lines.
You're absolutely right about that. As soon as you see the speed, you know it's Disruptors. And if it's a Colossus, you just go, you know, why am I playing Evil? What happened here? Yeah, it's Disruptors. And they're not getting too much done, but I think one of the more important things by far is that you're constantly doing things. If you can be so good with your Warp Prism that you use the Disruptors every time they have a shot, you actually like can have that counter in your brain, then that makes this build pretty good. But if you are someone who can't, or you're mismacroing back at home, then like, of course, don't do this. Or if you lose the Warp Prism, then definitely don't do this. But just taking some hull damage, forced to kind of waste shots there. But this is also doing scouting. And this could also recall back home and help if Elazer is going to do an all-in.
Yeah, and I want to note one thing also. You'll sometimes see ShoWTimE like pull back these shots or like kind of move them out after the army runs away. It kind of just looks like he just lets them die wherever. I think sometimes that might just be a little bit of like okay, the army backed off, whatever. I'm not going to control this any further. Sometimes he is actually trying to find the creep tumors. He's actually been able to find like a couple of them now. I think like maybe 2 creep tumors. Oh my God, he might be able to get a big hit off on one of these roaches or lings. Doesn't quite get it. Both the Disruptors in the red now. A very, very ballsy maneuver, but doesn't quite pay off.
Literally ballsy.
Yeah,
that's I guess he's done it before with some success because that was very confidently put down, but I don't know. I would have been like, no, that's not going to work. And well, I guess I was more correct. But he still kept him alive, which is far more important. Although very, very weak. Like those can actually be target fired by roaches, which you don't usually see too often. You know, in this matchup, so much less target firing. But to push out, pretty bold. Maybe Elazer not quite prepared for this. Was trying to get to a hive. Is finishing up his banelings, but once again without baneling speed. So he's going to set up a big surround, and that might work out. But actually, the force fields on the left side are absolutely beautiful. Plus the disruptor shot in case the banelings are walking into it. The backside, actually, Colossus fell down, so that's a good start, I guess, for Elazer, but he's going to be continuously blocked off by force fields.
I think this is actually such a sick position over here for ShoWTimE. Like you said, Elazer was trying to set up for this nice concave, but ShoWTimE actually found like this little area where there's just no creep up there on that high ground. He was able to safely retreat back to you, like you said, abusing the heck out of those force fields. And slow banelings should not be able to get great connections over here. The force fields lock out so many of those banelings. Finally, a few of them connect on a couple of the sentries. The sentries on the front lines are going to end up falling over here. The disruptors, oh, they do get target fired down. Just the Colossus really dishing out some of that AoE damage, but now Blink Stalker's going to be utilized. More units being warped in. Very, very even supplies over here. And ShoWTimE, with no signs of a fourth base just yet, really does want to get some damage done.
I mean, he wants to win the game right here, but I think it's really important that Elazer is able to split even a little bit against the disruptor shots, because otherwise, I think it would be game over. When those force fields came down and the disruptor shot went out, it's very likely other Zerg players would have lost 20 supply in either Banelings or Roach Ravager. But he was able to barely hold on, still barely holding on. But against this many Blink Stalkers and a single Colossus just to help out with a little bit of extra damage, it's really tough. The Stalkers have +1, where Elazer only went for +1 on his Lings. Every time you see those Lings burn to a crisp thanks to that Colossus, Elazer's army is no longer that effective. And every time, oh, well, Hatchery's going to go down. Hatchery goes down, and ShoWTimE going to continue pushing forward. Yes, he is. Also grabbing the Roche Warren. Oh, no.
That's a big one. I do want to note one Viper was made by Elazer, and he's probably getting that energy, I imagine, right now for that Viper to yoink that Colossus into the Roach Ravager ball. But look at that. ShoWTimE already microing that Colossus very, very far back. He even picks it up into the Warp Prism to make sure it cannot just get yoinked and grabbed. Warp Prism might get yoinked and grabbed instead, but there's not that many queens, and the stalking count is staying strong. He snipes off another queen.
Oh, man. These guys... very, very close here. Yeah, a Baneling counterattack, actually. 6 Banelings went down, but no +2, so a lot more actually survived, or probes, rather. Stalker's continuing to move in. Elazer does still have 4 bases, but he's not really mining from that 4, so he's just still desperately trying to hold on. He's trying to push these Stalkers back. A Blinding Cloud actually going down to the Stalkers, forces a lot of them forward. But the Colossus is still alive, but it's actually not being used. He can drop that out, and it could help. The Viper was already used, but it doesn't actually matter. The Stalkers have won. The Stalkers have won a tremendous amount, actually. That was not even close towards the end. GG.